Yes, guys, welcome back to the squad on TDK Plus. How are you? I hope you're all doing fantastically well after a lovely win over Wigan on Sunday afternoon. After a lovely week of football, wasn't it, Rohan? That Brentford game definitely didn't ruin any sleep for you or any of us. I had such a lovely time. We are back. I was at a wedding yesterday, so I missed the game live. Although I did realise, lads, the last time I was at a wedding was the Villa game that we won 4-1. So I'm saying... Do I need to just go to weddings for Arsenal to play well?
Just stop watching Arsenal.
Yeah.
just stop.
Some people would request that anyway, Rohan.
I'm kind of a fan of having a little vlog style thing of you as a wedding crasher every now and then.
I could do that.
know?
I could just pick games. Maybe the City
content,
game,
you know?
City game at the Etihad, the Spurs game. I just don't watch. We just hope that's the thing. We are here to discuss Wigan. We're here to discuss all sorts of stuff as always. Just a couple of housekeeping bits. We are going to be picking the shirt giveaway winner on Thursday's TDK Live with Rohan. So we're doing that live. You didn't know that, did you? I just told you that. We'll be doing that live on the show, so very much looking forward to that. If you want to be in chance with winning that shirt to celebrate the launch of TDK Plus, you can do that by becoming a patron or YouTube member and just commenting kit on one of the posts. I think that's all the housekeeping we need to do. How are we, chaps? How are we feeling after yesterday?
Feeling good, however, I'm on the Lucasade.
Okay.
Got a semi-clean tissue.
Oh.
After some...
There's a joke in there.
A recent... not great. I wasn't feeling very good yesterday, not feeling great today, but outside of that, delightful.
Yeah.
Obviously, I needed the Wigan game because that Brentford game, it ruined my sleep. It actually ruined my sleep. I said it on the IR, I don't mind dropping points. I can stomach it. I can't stomach that. So I needed a little pick-me-up. And I got that.
This is kind of where I wanted to start the show, really. People saw... I actually can't get the graphic up because X is down as we're recording. But Scott Willis posted something the other day that I think it would be a good place to start in. Post-Brentford, obviously a lot of the discourse is around Arsenal and is around us being... It's typical, as fans, and we do it. I'm guilty of it. Everyone's guilty of it. When we win, it's because we're good. When we lose, it's because we're bad. It's never sort of the flip, right? But Scott Willis posted this thing, and it was the comparison of open play XG, I think per 90, or again, I can't see it right now, of every team in the Premier League since last season to this season. Every single team in the league, bar United, who, as you said, Rohan, were bobbins last season, so not sure that counts, have gone down in terms of their open play XG from this year to last year. When we're looking at the performances in the Champions League, when we're looking at the performances in the Cups, when we're looking at the sort of the different contexts we play in, George, I'll come to you first. Where are you at right now in terms of like, if you could weight the argument of like Arsenal's attacking issues, do you look more at the context? Do you look at the ideas? Obviously, it's going to be a combination, but we come into these cup competitions and we have these unbelievable performances, and dynamics spring up and stuff, and then I hear numbers like that, and it just makes me weight it in a different way than maybe I would have post Brentford, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to comment on it because there's these what we're playing for and the aesthetic of it is something that I've kind of talked about it on previous pods, where there's this pull, in my opinion, from the Arsenal fan base about who we are and what we represent. And then there's this other pull of, at this point in the project, you must win. And then there is a coach who, and a club, by the way, that are looking at fundamentally, how do we kick on, take the next step, right? And at what point is your business or your life just purely output based? Right? You don't have to like somebody, but if they're just killing it at work, what are you going to say as a boss, right? You're going to want to encourage that behavior, right? Because they're killing it. But there's a part of you that also is like, well, I just don't like him, and the way he goes about his business just rubs me the wrong way. And there's this pull between those things because by every account, what our football is effective. I don't believe that somebody could argue against that. Now, how we do it and how we achieve that effectiveness is definitely something. You may not like the way that we are doing it, but you factually can't argue with the actual output, about how we are doing. And when you talk about the context about XG dropping down for everybody in the league, we are also one of those teams in that chart that have experienced some of the smallest decreases in XG between last season and this season. So therefore, when you combine it with the performance in the cups that have absolutely been much better, which has not happened in the last couple of years with Mikel, it is part of the context of your total season. And I think we also are on course to play something like another 24 games this year if you're going to be competing in all competitions, having already done that at this point with the context of the injuries and all those things. So it's a long-winded way of saying, and really going back to the analogy, I don't like what you're doing, but it's effective. And for a season that was placed with no excuses, and that was the tag, I can understand somebody going into a season wanting to produce when that is the standard. Like if you as a fan base in the media and the world, and even within your own group, because there's going to come a point to which this group stops believing if you can't ultimately succeed. That's probably a fair assumption to make no matter what in life. Like, you know, if you're working out for 6 months and then suddenly you're seeing no results, you're going to be like, well, whatever I'm doing is useless. Like, I'm going to stop. I got to change, good or bad. So there has to be success paired with your journey. And I think that you also aren't able to reflect on the journey being good until you've tasted success. Like, I look back in my life, you know, and it's one of those things. Every time I've succeeded, you talk like in a righteous way. It's all about the journey, but you actually don't believe it until you've kind of climbed that mountain and you're like, wow, I really needed to go through this and this in order. That's what got me to the summit. And you can only really reflect after you've summited. While you're going through it, it's difficult. And this pull between who Arsenal are and the way of Arsenal playing, which is not what we're doing, and what we've done to achieve that success in the past is not how we're doing it now, but we are achieving success with it. It's a really difficult thing, I think, as a fan for you to accept, because we're talking about the way Arsenal are achieving success more this season than we are about we're first in the Champions League, we are first in the league. We are talking about a point in which we are having distance between us and Manchester City, and we are performing the best that we have done in the domestic cups for the last 2 to 3 years. So by every metric, we are successful, by every numbers, but people are looking at it and saying, I don't like how we're doing it. And that is causing an internal struggle.
Yeah, Rohan, like I see a lot of veering between results of sort of, you know, and even with myself, you know, I'm not excluding myself from it. I'll come away from that Brentford game going, our fundamental issues are attacking dynamics. That's it. And then I'll watch the first half against Brentford, against Wigan, and go, well, actually, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just, you know, if we put the right players in the right positions and, you know, we're in a different competition, actually, if you look at this chart and these numbers, etc., maybe it's completely different. And I think it does come back to a lot of what George is saying there, which is that we're just at win, I don't care how, we're at win stage. And we maybe are less interested in looking at those things when we drop points. We're less interested in looking at context, etc. Because it feels like we have been doing that for so long. Well, you know, 22, 23, this, that, and the other, and everyone's just at I want to win stage. Where it just in terms of like trying to be as clear-eyed as possible and removing that, I want to go back to that question. How much do you weight it? Where if you were to try to summarize, you think it's more on the contextual side or it's more on our issues? If I put sort of attacking issues as a headline, where would you weight it? Context or us?
It's interesting. I think it's a bit of both. You know, I think when I look at our issues, maybe I'm slightly different to the masses, and maybe to both of you as well.
You are special.
I'm a special boy. I look at, so going back to George's point in terms of effectiveness, Arsenal are effective in the same way as Brentford, as Rice alluded to post-match. They are effective at what they do. It's chaos, it's long ball, it's throw-ins, it's set pieces, and it's so annoying to play against, and that's how teams will feel against us as well, but it is effective. And if you look at the numbers so far this season, and look at XG differentials, so it's on my X account if you wanted to see it, but there's a really interesting article from The Athletic. So Arsenal this season, this was before the Brentford game. So the XG differential for the season so far for Arsenal is at 1.09 versus Man City, who are second, they're at 0.69. So this article from The Athletic looked at XG in greater detail. It looked at a sample of 2,800 games, I believe, from the 2018-19 season. And effectively, it's looking at the probability of winning games based on XG differentials. So Arsenal's XG differential this season, it effectively leads to them winning 66% of games, whereas Man City's is 53% of games. That's a massive difference. Man City's is effectively just ahead. It's just more than a flip of a coin. So when we talk about, like, you see the XG post-match and you see like, this team has, been superior to the opposition by 0.2 XG, that really isn't something to gloat about. That is really a close game. But what Arsenal have shown over the season is that they have had margins that are very big. And that's where it goes back to the effectiveness. Arsenal, from a data perspective, and we've always said it, Mikel is very data-driven. And I do believe if Arsenal maintain that, we'll win the league. And I still think we'll win the league. But having said that, so that's the perspective of, how we have been effective. In terms of like the context of the wider Premier League and the XG numbers in open play decreasing compared to last season outside of Manchester United, there's certainly a conversation to be had in terms of, it's not just exclusive to Arsenal. It's every single team that is going through this. However, now it's a long-winded way of going back to now what I say are our issues. I look at our issues in which the technical level of the team just drops off completely in periods of games. That for me is the biggest concern that I have, and it's been happening since the Aston Villa second half at home. That second half, which you were at a wedding and we absolutely spanked them. Since then, I've been saying it in which the two things aren't mutually exclusive, right? Arsenal have earned the right to the wins that they've had since that game. But equally, I don't think Arsenal have been convincing in their performances. I think there have been periods in games in which, when I say the technical level of the team drops off completely, I'm not just talking about like, a loose pass or a misplaced pass. I'm talking about when we go long, our propensity to second balls isn't there. It's not there. We don't get there first. That's why Brentford, after the equaliser, what was so frustrating is we had such a good period post half time up until the goal. And then obviously we had that moment in transition in which we should have buried. And then after that, for 20 or so minutes, we couldn't sustain any pressure. It happened against Manchester United. It happened against Liverpool as well. So when we talk about our issues in an attacking sense, I'm more looking at it from a perspective of, I don't think that is the primary issue. I think the primary issue is that we're not sustaining pressure in periods of games because our technical level just drops off. We're not there for second balls. We're not there for simple passes. Like against Brentford, and I'm going on a little bit of rant here. There are times in which they provoke you to go long, right? So you see them, they press man to man, it's aggressive. You have to go long. You can't just play short there. But there are other moments in which we can play short and we go long. Those are the things that do frustrate me because we are playing the game that they want. And this is not just Brentford. We've done it against Liverpool as well in a different way. We've done it against Manchester United in a different way. That for me is something that we can control. We absolutely can control. And that's for me the biggest issue that I have with this Arsenal team so far. It is that technical baseline just drops off too low in prolonged periods of time in game. So
interesting. Yeah, I think I'd personally weight this sort of the attacking dynamics as a higher thing, but I see what you're saying in terms of certain games. There has, the technical proficiency has not been there. I think realistically, to sort of maybe to try and put a cap on this a little bit, I see this team as incredibly effective. We really know what the right thing to do in a game is. I mean, if you look at every single conversation that an Arsenal player comes out and has about Mikel, if they go into any kind of detail about Mikel, they will talk about what he is telling you. Here's the type of game that is going to be played today, and here's what I want. And I think that can maybe sometimes mean you play at the level you play at the level of the opposition. You beat them at their game or the game that Mikel thinks is going to happen, rather than maybe having a little bit more proactivity. We become so effective at playing the game on offer rather than offering a game. Does that make sense? It's a slightly different mindset. And I think that's what sees us play such wildly different football in these different competitions, and the narrative veering around constantly because we are so adaptable. I did a video on the main channel talking about, like, maybe that's our best quality. It is our adaptability, is our ability to play in different contexts and different spaces at different tempos, etc. But it does mean that we'll go to Brentford and go, okay, well, Brentford are going to try and play this type of game, so let's beat them at that game. and it's like I wish sometimes we'd be a bit more on the front foot in terms of how we sort of lay a marker down for how we want to play.
Can I ask you just really quickly though, why do you think you feel that way? And is it at all informed from? I don't want to make an answer from you, but is it at all informed that our most successful period from Arsene Wenger was the complete opposite, that we literally didn't look at the opposition, in which we as a club have built our major successes on playing how we feel and using our game. Even George Graham, when you talk about that era, when you look at how defensive and how brilliant that football was, the 1-0 to the Arsenal, that was still us imposing ourselves on other people. And our entire history was built on that. Like, is there this tug as the fabric of an Arsenal fan that proactivity is part of our club and how we need to achieve success? And maybe Mikel's not doing it.
Almost certainly. But I wouldn't, I'd actually say this isn't like an Unai Emery, I'm only going to think about the opposition. I think it's the ability to see what the game is and adapt to the game and play that and be protagonists in that sense, in terms of like, well, we can play that game, we'll beat you at that. But just sometimes I'd like us to dictate what the terms of the game are a bit more. And I think that's my thing. And I think that's really, if we're coming back to the, is it context, is it ours, whatever, that's maybe the issue. And maybe what Arsenal fans are feeling and why the narrative flips around so much, why we maybe have the outside perspective that some people do have on us, because we're so adaptable. But I said this in the video, that's also an issue. That's also sometimes you create a rod for your own back that way.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a massive strength, but it is also a weakness. It's a double-edged sword. And actually, I know I go on about that lecture so much, right? That Miguel Molina one. I will talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. But it will provide more. It will provide more meat to the bone on your point, right? Because if you listen to that lecture, right, it's very transferable to today, right? Because there's not much time to prepare for each game. And he was saying in that period, and this was 2020, 2021, it's like, we don't have time to train the specifics for each game. But what we do know, he said, is we know that this team's going to play a 4-3-3. We know this team's going to play a 4-4-2. We know this team is going to jump for their wingers instead of their centre forwards. So we're going to do this, we're going to do that, depending on the opposition. So it's like, it's therefore always adapting to the opposition, but still trying to install your blueprint. But actually, maybe you don't need to have that adapt to the opposition to begin with. You can just go for your blueprint anyway. But it's the fine balance. And also maybe it's also unfair perhaps to compare to Arsene Wenger because the game has evolved as well. Like I completely hear you, Jordan. That was the point that I was going to say to Alex. But then just thinking out loud, the game has evolved. The game has become a lot more tactical. There's a lot more resource into the game. So it just allows teams to become a lot better equipped. So you're constantly having to seek information and to try and find the margins. So, yeah.
And in that context, how do you build a game model? And like the thing is, I don't disagree with what Mikel and the coaching staff have done. It's just that occasionally you'd want a bit more. You'd want it
a bit more like Wigan, isn't it? It's a bit more like the Wigan game. Even though Wigan are absolutely pony. I mean, we are playing literally the fallen giants of the Premier League and the FA Cup. But maybe it's a bit like, can you not treat this game a bit more like our Wigan, where nobody's focusing on Wigan.
I will not get the answer to this question because I'm asking it in the future. I would love to talk to us in 3 years. And under the pretense that we've been successful.
Yeah.
And it does make, because I don't believe it. Like, there is a real part of me that Mikel is humble enough to understand that maybe having come from a philosophy of seeing Pep and Arsene Wenger, who are such idealists, like to that degree, but having also experienced the David Moyes and whatever, I really believe this in the best way possible. I think he's humble enough to understand that maybe my principles don't need to dominate. And what's most important is our success. And I just wonder if there's a part of him that changes and maybe he goes to the other way and maybe he starts demanding a little bit more of his own personal game model, whatever that might look like. I think oftentimes, look, guys, we always think that whatever we are doing is best in the moment. And then when it starts to fail, it's like, oh, let me look at the other guy that's maybe the other way. And I want to dip in a bit of that. And normally balance is always shifting the spectrum X%. It's never, okay, if it's black, let's go all the way white. It's like, we got to get to gray and we're too much into the black or we're too much into the white. And there's finding that balance, finding that fine tune is something you strive for always in life. But that's something I think Mikel and we as a fan base are asking.
I do wonder. I just do wonder what happens after this season, which we all envisage Arsenal winning a big trophy, right? I'm intrigued because when he won the FA Cup, Mikel still had to prove himself, right? You know, if you win an FA Cup, I'm a firm believer. It doesn't matter, even if it's the Champions League. The best team in the Champions League doesn't always win the Champions League. The cup competition, there's a lot of luck involved. So Mikel's had to prove himself, and he's still having to prove himself. But then once he wins the Premier League, he doesn't need to prove himself in that sense, right? So I wonder what happens then, really. So.
Well, I think, certainly to a much lesser extent. Have you guys seen Marty Supreme? It's like the
Great
bit,
movie.
yeah. Like if you know by, I mean, I don't condone his actions in the movie, but when he wins the thing at the end, it's like, okay, you see that in a different way. If he'd lost it, it's like, bro, you didn't have to do all that, and we're kind of in that bit before we've won that final match. I won't spoil the thing for anyone, although I kind of just have. We're in that bit, and I think ultimately once we've won, it's not that everything we did was perfect, but you know, we might get what they called paddle sponsorships a bit easier. This analogy's gone too far. Arsenal 4, Wigan 0. I know you guys have probably spoken about Eze and Saka on the instant reaction. So literally, I pulled out my phone. I genuinely was like, I was trying to be present at the wedding, and I got my phone out. And I saw Saka's at the time. Just the first thing I thought of was George Voutsas's smiling face. But it's nice.
Literally messaged me. Like, it's no joke.
I was like 5 pints deep. I just thought of George Voutsas. So Arsenal 4, Wigan 0. A couple of things I want to talk about.
Tell us, Alex. Tell us your thoughts on it.
I loved it. I've only seen the first half, but I absolutely love the dynamics. Again, we're back to, is it context or whatever, but I think Saka in particular... And another player in a second I want to talk about. Saka in particular, his strength and hold up in the middle of the park. George, remember we were talking about on the Scout the other day about players who can drop off the last line, and carry on their runs and not have to go back all the time. Yeah, Saka's he's world class at that, and he was dropping into certain areas and he was getting us out of situations where I'm going, and this is no disrespect, but if that's Martin Odegaard, if that's Eze, if that's anyone else, he's not going forward in that position. Yeah. So to have someone, if we want more central access, if we want those things, I really, really, really am keen, and I loved Mikel's comments after the game that he's keen to see it. But something I really love as well, I think Rohan, we've had a conversation about like what have been Arsenal's best attacking teams or dynamics or whatever, and it's always seemed to be false nines or heading in that direction, certainly number nines who can drop off and giving the wingers a little bit more freedom to make runs in behind. And I thought Martinelli had another really good attacking performance yesterday, so I want to talk about Martinelli. He has 11 goals this season in all competitions, 1 in the Premier League, but 6 in the Champions League, 4 in 2 games in the FA Cup, and 3 assists in under 1,500 minutes. The thing yesterday that really got me, and I sort of love these games because you can almost see your ideas unimpeded. I think it's not necessarily that there's nothing to gain out of it. It's just your game model isn't going to be attacked as much as you maybe expect. And his ability to time those curved runs off the last line, obviously he does it for the goal, but he's doing it all through the afternoon. There was a game the other day he did it as well. Against Chelsea, he was doing it, pulling Chalobah into the midfield and then running in behind. He's really found something when we have more of that. Not false niney type, although I think Gyökeres was playing against Chelsea, but when he's given that space on the last line to make those runs, his timing of it he's really improved it. George, we have had many discussions over the years about Gabriel Martinelli and where he fits in the team. My position hasn't really changed. He's still not my starting left winger, but equally that's not really a thing anymore. Like, you know, the starter, I mean, it's just different contexts of different things. The tool he is, we don't have anyone else like him. The finisher he is when he's central, as we've always said. The question mark has been, is he right for every single context? And I think we both would say probably no. But in these types of contexts, he's magic, mate. He really is. And I think we've sort of lost that spark of him. Maybe, you know, he's been at the club a long time. He's maybe had a couple of seasons where he's been overplayed and played in too many contexts where he's not right. Probably similar to Gyökeres in a sense. Like, you know, you're just in enough context where we don't like what you're doing, so we lose you a little bit. But in the right context, man, he's magic.
Yeah, it's difficult for me because I did make a post like a couple weeks ago in which, you know, I've been pining that I feel like he's our most underrated player of the season. And because I was looking at his output, and of course, you know, people are going to point to he's not doing it in the Premier League, but, you know, he's on course to basically match his most productive season that he's had even back in 22-23, in which a majority of that output came in the Premier League. Yeah. But it's just flipped, right? And to me, when you've got a player that just simply guarantees you 15 goals and assists minimum a season, that is a useful forward by very definition. Now, how much you want to use that as far as it being a starter, a bench player, and in what context and whether or not you want a platform, that all comes down to a lot more what do you want from your attack? And if we're not going to use him in the way that I think he can succeed, then that 15 goal and assist mark will never go higher than it could be. And then it's like, okay, well, do you want to reinvest in something that could be higher? And that's a discussion that we've had over the years. But when I look at a Martinelli point, one of my biggest things is I feel like this is a guy who runs on instinct, and it's a front line that lacks instinct, in a lot of ways. And, it's about wanting to cultivate some of the things that you lack. And for me, it doesn't make sense to take away that natural instinct. And I'm trying to really be specific about why I even like Martinelli in central areas. So not just, give him more central stuff, he'll score more. But why? Like, why is it that the chance at Brentford is not converted, but the one that we've seen here at Wigan in a similar-ish position, maybe just 5 yards inside, is finished with conviction on his weak foot? Like, why? What's the reason for it? And for me, it just comes down to a lot of times the reason why I've been really frustrated with the left wing application is the 5 yards to the left constricts your angles a lot more. And for somebody that operates on instinct as an initial thing, it can actually work against you when only one option is consistently there. And for you actually remove the instinct and you tell them you must operate in this context. And that can be very difficult for players that operate on instinct. For example, sometimes if it gets too much into chaos and you add structure, it helps. So we look at Madueke, for example, who is the definition of chaos. We're thinking, okay, look, if we can add a bit more structure to your chaos, it can be channeled in a better way. And maybe you'll increase your output. For me, I simply think that Martinelli sees the pitch in different areas. And it's really that simple. And a lot of times players, and I can only pull from my even own playing days, there are just some times that I can inexplicably not tell you that I used to see the pitch better just from the left. It didn't make sense. We're talking about tackling or whatnot, but I just saw the pitch differently from a different area of the pitch. And I think there's a part of that with Martinelli because it's not just, okay, central areas give you more angles, so therefore you have more finishes available. Yeah, we know all this, right? But if the player's going to base his game on instinct and you're going to reduce the options that player gets, then sometimes it's more difficult for that player to consistently produce. And so it becomes that age-old question then. That's a long-winded way of saying, are you going to give Martinelli that freedom? And are you going to give him that position in a way to start his run centrally? Because he does, again, guys, it finishes in a very similar position. If you really took a screenshot of both of those things, it probably literally is the difference of 5 yards. Yep. But the difference is he's been attacking that 5 yard path the entire time in his run. He's coming from the left, and there's only one way that he's got to do. He's got to open up far side. Versus the Brentford run, he's curving inside, but it's a straight line run. It's not a diagonal run to the far side. So it's like your finish could be near post. It could be far. It could be the weak foot that he did. He could take it around the keeper. There's a lot more variation to it. And he thrives on the ability to make decisions. If you keep forcing Martinelli to make a decision, I find he struggles. And he struggles in the easy finishing moments that we perceive as being easy. So it's like, it's one of those, right? That's what do you want to cultivate? And, if you want to reinvest that into something that you can cultivate better, then power to you. But that's kind of the dichotomy of Martinelli that I've tried to say instead of just central areas.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And it's really fine. And I think specifically on the angles thing, where we've had him for so long, we're back to context. Where we've had him for so long, it puts him in out of the instinct mode and puts him into cog mode, where he isn't right. He isn't. That's not who he is. So I know the thing is, I've always, probably historically, I've kind of weighted it more towards, okay, yes, I hear that, but equally he can be doing better. I think what we've now seen is the perfect match, Rohan, between his usage and where he's being put, and so Mikel has found the right sort of usage for him. And I'm going through, and I'm thinking about sort of his best performances. All of his goals and assists so far this season have come not in starts. So he's in the Premier League, sorry. So the three GAs had this season have been the Man City game where he came off the bench for the last 10 minutes, the Leeds game where he came off the bench for the last 29 minutes, and the Sunderland game where he came off the bench for the last 30 minutes. And that's the perfect context where the game is a bit more open. The game, he can work on a little bit more of instinct rather than trying to break things down. We're back to the discussion we had at the top of the show. We're seeing someone in the right context. And I think specifically in terms of his future, I think he's one of the only players in the team with 2 years left in the deal come the summer. I could be wrong. I need to just check that.
I think he's also got a +1 option on this too.
Okay. But yeah, I'm sort of arriving to a point now with Martinelli that as a first 11 play in every context, I think that conversation's done for me. I don't think he works there. But as a tool, as a guy in the squad, used properly, used correctly, this is really important. This is first 15, at least for me, and one of the first subs you make when the game is going that way. And also from a contract perspective, if we give him the option, I don't think he's on crazy wages. If he's willing to just extend on similar terms, it makes a lot of sense to me.
He's only 24, 25 as well.
Yeah.
It's like because he's been around for so long. He came when he was a teenager, so I also think sometimes, we don't value a player who's been here for so long, where we just, if this was somebody else came in the summer and produced let's say he produced similar sort of output to Martinelli, we'd be praising them, and what Martinelli's done, I think, George is spot on. I'd say Martinelli and Trossard, ironically, the 2 players whose future were heavily debated in the summer, and I think every single Arsenal fan, most Arsenal fans envisaged one of them leaving. I think both of them have been our unsung heroes this season. And do you know what the thing is with both Martinelli and Trossard is Mikel loves those 2 so much. I don't think people realise how much he can rely on Martinelli and Trossard irrespective of the game state. When we are in a 1-goal lead and we're talking about a substitution, what's the first attacking substitution he's going to make? If Trossard's starting, Martinelli's going to come on. If Martinelli's starting, Trossard will come on. Like for like. He does that because he knows they can provide the threat going forward, but also defensively. These 2 are so good. 1v1 fullbacks in the Premier League could learn from Martinelli or Trossard. They're genuinely that good. And in terms of Martinelli's output this season, I think he's on G&A every 102 minutes. And obviously the Portsmouth game does skew that, but that's a really impressive return for a player. Yeah. Also, when we talk about when these goals or assists are happening, talking about Bilbao breaks the game open when he comes on, and then he gets the influential. Yeah, you're talking about Man City. It's an equaliser. The finish is crazy. Olympiacos breaks the game open. Portsmouth, he scores the goal to put us ahead. These are goals that are happening in crucial moments. And I always think when you're talking about goals, if someone scored 10 goals and they're on when they score them when the pressure is off, I think I personally would look a little bit more into that. I don't think just looking at the pure output, which obviously is good, and forwards will always look at it, but I think you need to dig a little bit deeper of when these goals actually happen. And then interestingly, Mikel last season, right? So I've got some quotes here. So it was when Martinelli was positioned on the right wing, and he said, Gabby needs people around him. He needs constant threat. He needs to always be on the last line when the ball is on his side, that he has relationships there and people close to him because he's very intuitive. He's always a threat. I think if you are isolating him too much, you're going to suffer, especially playing with a natural foot on the right. Now, a lot of that, I think, is applicable irrespective of where Martinelli's playing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So this is the Mikel knows what the player is, and that for me sometimes has been the frustration of how Martinelli has been used on the left, because everything you have said there is bang on. Intuition, playing on the last line, ghosting in behind, abandoning width. These are things that Martinelli, this is bread and butter, irrespective on the right or the left. And if you look at all of his output this season, there's the same sort of pattern. It's not wide. It's closer to goal. Whether it's centre forward or an inside forward, I don't care. But he needs to be closer. He needs to be narrow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's actually 100 every 101.85 minutes, mate. Get your facts right. So yeah, no, but it's really, really good. It's really, really good, and I think I'm really enjoying this kind of remontada in some sense of his reputation. I think people are starting to enjoy him again because he is allowed to be. We all know it. We all have those situations and people in life. You're just like, if we spent less time together, I'd probably like you more. But I have to. It's like, you know, there's colleagues at work. You're like, probably if we hung out for a beer every 2 months, I'd be like, yeah, really nice guy. If I have to see you every day, that's when I get annoyed. And I think Martinelli is kind of in that bracket. And I think I've heard rumours, and there's been sort of from pretty reliable sources, that Mikel has real frustrations with Martinelli. And I'm not saying I don't agree with the sources. I don't know. But what I can imagine is probably Martinelli is a bit frustrating, but because you see how much potential he has, he's probably one of those guys who you in training, you see how much he wants it, you see how much he's doing, you see how much he tries and works and is available. I'm even just looking at his availability record. He hasn't missed more than 10 games in a season since a knee injury, and it was 2 games in 2021. He was clean for a whole season 21-22. He missed 2 games in 22-23, 9 games in 23-24, 4 games last season, and 4 games so far this season. That is an unbelievable record. So, you know, it's one of those things, you're always available, you're always on it, you're always fit, and then sometimes you can't beat your man, and that's annoying.
And
so there probably is those frustrations. And he plays 100 miles an hour. So I can imagine there are frustrations with him at times, but it's only frustration because you see how much he gives. And it's like, oh, dude, come on, just channel it a slightly different way.
It's tough too, guys, because, by the way, like, Alex, I think it's spot on because, sorry, but what does Mikel do after every single time there's a press match conference in which Martinelli has missed a chance? Like, it's not
always
even...
name checks him.
He always name checks him. And, you know, look, I think part of my problem too is this is one of those cases where 100% you need space, but also you're like also at fault for the way that you act. Like, Mikel says the things that he knows will get Martinelli in better positions, but then just doesn't play him. So then you're like, it's like you see both of your best friends fighting and you're like, mate, I can see both of your points. Like, you just got to both let it go. Yeah. And it's one of those where it's like, okay, Mikel, play him better. Martinelli, when you're in those positions, take your chances and be more clinical. Finish, right? Yeah. So it's like, dude, like, I see both of your points, but, you know, you guys are both not wrong, but you're not both right kind of vibe. Yeah. And it's like, you as your best friend, like, we are the fans and we can see both points of view. So it's like, it's really difficult too, because I think Martinelli represents everything that Mikel would stand for. As far as an out of position application, a mentality. Yeah. This is a guy that's constantly available, as you said, Alex. This is a guy that I think is somebody that cares about his craft. He isn't flashy. He cares about football. He does all the right things. He's 24 years old, guys. Like, he's guaranteeing you 15 goals and assists. Like, come on. Like, it's all green. But then I do agree with you, Alex. There's a part of him that goes, God, you could be a phenom. But then he's also like not doing some of the things that he knows he has to do. So it's like, come on, guys. Like, just get over it.
And when there were points last season where I was banging my head against the wall. I was banging it in the way some of the things he was doing. Just to round off this Martinelli conversation, so, and I know it's not very reliable, but ballpark figures, Capology have him at 180 grand a week. Let's say he was on 180 grand a week.
Yeah.
If you were Berta and Martinelli's agent comes in, are you renewing at, let's say, 200 grand a week on a new 5-year deal?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think
right now I would.
Because I think financially, if you look at the outlay of doing that in comparison to trying to replace him, it's going to be more to replace him.
And I also think at that, you know, maybe if you could do 190 or something like that, someone like a Bayern, someone like a Serie A team, or there would be a team out there who for 200 grand a week, you know, same wages or maybe a little bit more, would take him, and he would bang. He would. Like, he just would. 2-striker
system as well. Gabriel Martinelli in a 2-striker system. Yeah. I could just see him killing
We're moving
One
towards
drops in, one spins in behind.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It would be suicide for me, because I think, let me be fair, his next contract extension, I think, would argue he's more than a bench player, to be fair. Like, to me, when you cross the 200 mark, you start to eke into you really should be in the starting 11. I don't think it's guaranteed. I think for me, anything 250 grand and above, you got to be in the starting 11.
I don't know. I think this is one of those things, we come back to this, don't we, mate? Like, I look at it, I would agree with you historically, but I wonder whether we need to like up that to 250. Like, I'm looking at, I'm looking at like City, and, you know, like Ake's on 180 grand a week, and it's like, you know, he's probably not even in the top 17, 18 players there. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
And maybe we do, but let me just come out and say it. Jesus is nowhere near 265k a week based on what he's contributed to this team.
Yeah.
So like, let's say logically 180 becomes 250, 265. Does somebody with 15 goals and assists guaranteed deserve that? I would be like, I don't know, but I can justify it. He's giving you 15 goals and assists a year. Like, he's not in Jesus camp, and he's not Saliba, Saka, Rice. Yeah. So what is that worth in the marketplace? And maybe you're right. Like, I have this thing where I think it has to be 200 to 250, but maybe it's becoming 250 to 300. But regardless of me and your opinion, as long as the club sets a wage structure along that thing where he's not a pillar, but he's just below, I'm okay. That's where I would put him. So if the club disagree with me, he's in that non-pillar wage thing, but still very important. And I would. I mean,
I for me personally, like, footballing inflation is just nuts, right? Like, wage inflation. I would look at, if Martinelli was given the same role this season to next season, and he bumps up his wage by 20k per year, I'm good with that. I'm generally good with that. I'm generally good with that, because I do think that the market is crazy, you know, and I'd reckon that Man City, if you go through their wages and you go through some of the other top clubs, their wages,
Liverpool, whatever.
Yeah, I'd imagine around 200k is what is more of the going rate, really, in terms of a player who's a valuable squad player. Where you're looking, I agree with you, when you go into like the 260s, 270s, I'm looking at, all right, you need to be like mainstay, Salibas, Sakas, Rices. You know what I mean? So
I think also, just for the dynamics between the players, there's got to be some. It's got to all make sense relatively. I think that's the thing. I think you can look at other clubs as well, and that you know that they're decent benchmarks. But you've got to say, you know, okay, who is our highest earner? Who is our second highest earner? Does that make sense for this team? Bukayo Saka being our highest earner makes sense for this team. If it was, you know, David Raya, even if he was on 150k and everyone was below, that wouldn't make any sense. It's, you know, it's got to be, it's all relative. And I think Martinelli, if he's in that, you know, Eze, Madueke kind of area of the team from a wages perspective, I'd be comfortable with that.
I mean, it's just to quickly finish on that. I mean, it's the Trossard point, right? Before the season, Trossard was given a boost because relative to his teammates, he earned the right to that boost. I'd imagine you wouldn't see the same level of productivity and the performances Trossard has been delivering this season had he not got that bump, because you become valued. It's in any occupation. So,
just while we've been recording, we've been drawn away to Mansfield Town in the fifth round of the Emirates FA Cup.
Oh, brilliant. Where is Mansfield, actually? Where the heck is Mansfield?
It's amazing. I think on the IR, I had a really big brain fart where I somehow thought that we had Newcastle away and freaked everybody out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
So George,
there was a thing. Okay, look, I was doing the thing because I was trying to host and I was trying to, like, you know, I was seeing group. Oh, we got Newcastle away, and I was like, "Wait, do we?" And I'm like, so I tried to bring it up, and it was just, I'm not good with tech. I panicked.
I was literally,
that's what happens.
I was buzzing with the thought that George just goes, "I think we got Newcastle away." But what? Where did you hear that from?
I panic. I'm just, it's just not it. But yes, Mansfield. That's brilliant.
That's great. That's really good, and I think that's just to not have to face anyone anytime soon in the FA Cup is great, lads. I was asking this. I asked this on the Knockabout. Where are we at for the keyword? Where are we at? Come on! I said 5%. I said 5%.
I think we all kind of agree. Did we all agree on that? I think I said 5 last time we asked this question.
Quadruple? Oh, I can't remember.
Quadruple.
I think I said 5.
I think our numbers were all over the place. They kind of contradicted.
George,
I was more confident on the double.
You were more confident with a double of a Premier League and Champions League, which I was not.
Yes.
5%.
I'm with you on 5. I'll tell you 5 right now.
1%.
Ain't doing it.
Right, Mansfield Town.
I'll be honest, right? I'll be honest.
One game from a Carabao.
I need the next Premier League game to come ASAP to get that Brentford game out of my head, because it genuinely we should talk about Wolves actually in terms of 11s, because I think we need to do some spicy stuff in that game.
Let's do that before we go to questions, because I was going to talk about Calafiori and maybe the fullbacks, etc. But maybe let's save that conversation for another day. But I do think this Wolves game.
Can you drop a one-liner though on the Calafiori just to give a little hint? Because I'm intrigued. Just a one-liner. Just leave it there. I did that with Hincapié on TCP Live with George. I just said a one-liner and then left it. Do a one-liner. Go on.
I prefer not to speak.
That's my line. I said that. If you're listening on audio, that was me. I'm wondering for each of where we're at with all the fullbacks. And I'm in no way saying I want to move on from Calafiori, and I'm in no way saying I want to move on from White, etc., etc. Like, I'm really, really nowhere near those conversations.
So what you're saying?
So what I'm saying is I hate get them all out of the club. But what I'm saying is I think there's some interesting conversations about Hincapié, Miles, Calafiori, White, Timber, like that succession planning, where we're at for the next season. You know, even Hincapié, like I'll be honest, I'm still not like 100% yes, absolutely signing Hincapié. I think he's a really good player and I like him. I'm still learning him, but it's not signed, sealed, delivered for me on Hincapié. But we'll park that there for today. We'll have another conversation about that another time. Wolves, I do think Wolves away is crucial, but it kind of is. I think when I look, Rohan, at our recent form in the Premier League, we're at 2 wins in the last 6 games, I think. Yep. I think it is quite important that we hit them for like 5 or 6 or something. I think that would be really well. I don't know if it's important, but I'd like a 5 or 6 put past them, especially ahead of Spurs away. I think that would be quite nice. And then you have the little break as well, obviously after the Spurs game.
So obviously you go to Molineux and they sing "Hi ho Wolverhampton," and away we go, and then we slap them for 5. That's what you're saying. Slap them for 5.
I'd love it. I think there are games which you just want to put like 7 past them and just make it feel good.
So I said this when we were.
You want that every game, but you.
I remember when we played them at the Emirates earlier, and I was like, I woke up feeling
Bad.
Spicy today. I want a 5-0 against Wolves. And then it comes out at the end where it's the 85th minute. Just win the game. Just win the game and let's get out of it. But I agree. I'll be honest, right? The Wolves game at the Emirates, Mikel annoyed me slightly because when we played West Ham, and I'll bring this back to Wolves, right? So when we played West Ham at home, Mikel started in that game Rice, Odegaard, and Eze. And I thought, perfect. Because you know West Ham are not going to play out from the back, right? So it makes your press redundant. If they're not going to play out, they're going to hit long balls. You can't create chances through your press because they are not going to allow you to do so. And Wolves were going to do exactly the same as West Ham. And then we start Rice and Zubmendi in that game. And I'm thinking you could have been a little bit more brave there. I think you could have played an additional natural pocket player. So now fast forward to Wednesday, I would love to see Saka inside. I would love to see Eze inside because it's the perfect opportunity to do so. They're not going to play out from the back. It's really toxic at Wolves right now as well. So I think you can be a little bit braver in this game. And I'd love for you to just push that dial there where we don't start both Rice and Mendy in this game. Because go on.
I'm just going to throw out another name, Ben White. I want to see White. I've got to see White in this game, man.
I think there's a good conversation to be had there as well. But I just think that this is a good opportunity to go for some of the things we saw against Wigan, against Wolves. I'm not saying you do the same against Spurs, but I think this game against Wolves, you can do something like this. And I'll tell you what, I was telling this to George as well in the IR. Sometimes you play the wrong team at the wrong time, right? I wish we kind of had the Wolves game last Thursday. And then we played Brentford on Wednesday. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. Just in a rhythm. George, I'm going to ask you a hard-hitting question as a full-time content creator here, and I only take my job seriously. Would it be good to win against Wolves? Now, have a think about that. Maybe should we have a go away and have a sort of collect your thoughts?
Yes.
It's excellent. It's excellent.
Look, it's one of those that I think the fan base needs a performance healer. It's what we've all been saying. We need a 5-0, not because for any other reason that's logical. You want to win 5-0 every other game, but it's more of like, okay, please don't make Wigan be the reason that we had the 4-0 after a really difficult result. And look, I'm with Rohan. Like we talked a little bit about it at the IR, so I won't repeat old ground there. I want us to continue with the tactic that we did. We got success with it. We're in a position in which this type of opposition without Larsson as well. Like You're looking at Wolves who are completely depleted. It is the only game, I would argue, guys, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, without Larson, what other game would be more open in the Premier League to try something that's completely new? Again, like, is there another team in the context and everything that you wouldn't want to? So it becomes one of those, right?
Back to what we were saying earlier. Like, this is one of those games where we have to dictate the time. Like, you can't give me Mikel's playing these guys to deal with the threat of Gomez and Gomez and Gomez in the midfield. Like, come on.
Well, exactly.
Dictate
it might be, and this is probably what people are saying. Like, look, Mikel, like, we don't need it to completely switch the spectrum again, but like, come on, there's no excuse. Like, this is the type of team in the Premier League. If you were to draw out who is the team that you can try the random false nine, the very random tactico-y, solution, you can do it against Wolves away who don't have Strand Larson. Like,
Ben White 6.
You can do whatever you want, kind of thing. And it's one of those. We want to see a bit of invention, a little bit of creativity, and a little bit of bravery. To circle back to the term that you use post-United, you want to see some bravery, and you can be brave against the weakest link.
I agree. Good TV show.
Can't do it against Wolves. What are we doing?
Right, we'll come to your questions. You can get access to the Discord if you become a Patreon member or a YouTube member. You also get access to the rewatch. There'll be a rewatch of that Wolves game where we're going to spank them 7-0. I'm reliably told, with Rohan and James. We've got a James C, isn't it? Or James B? Who's doing it? James C. Lovely stuff getting on the rewatches. George and I did a Croupy Scouted, which will be out soon. Get access to all those Scouted rewatches and other stuff on there as well. My Discord is still downloading an update. If anyone could get a grab there, it's been going. I when I was asking the fallback question is when I opened Discord, so it's taking a little while. And X isn't working, so it's going well. Go.
So, as usual, we got the classics in there. We got Nick, we got Dinny.
Yeah.
Dinny. We love Dinny. We love Nick as well. But I'm going to go with Kai Havertz Duma first. Question for the pod. With everyone fit in that unlikely scenario, what would be your best starting 11?
I mean, not to do the classic Alex Moneypenny on the fence, but it does depend on the game. But let's say Champions League final, Real Madrid. Let's do that. Let's pick a game. Raya Saliba, Gabriel, Rice Zubi, Havertz as the spine.
Wait, hold on. You went so quick there. Let's go back from goalkeeper to the back line.
You know who it is. Raya Saliba. I'm really the questions are on the outside of the team, right? Raya Saliba, Declan, Zubi, Kai Havertz. On the right hand side of the team, I would go Jurriën Timber. I think Timber's getting a little bit of. I'm not saying he's been in his best moment. I'm really not saying that, but I think sometimes we just need people need a scapegoat, and I think he's been slightly scapegoat. He's been okay. I
agree.
At right 8. Saka. I mean, if he's gonna do it, like, right, I know that's literally, it's been one game, but if Mikel would do it, Saka Noni, it would be a decent pick for me. Which is crazy that Noni's in that position, but there you go. I'd probably for now go Odegaard, Saka, and then on the left I'd go Trossard, Calafiori.
I'd agree with everything there, but you're telling me it's Real Madrid, so I'm going Martinelli left wing.
Oh yeah, good point.
I am doing Eze in the 10, Saka right wing, and Ben White right back.
Jeez.
And
George hates Timber.
Yeah, I probably have some stronger thoughts. We probably have to have a discussion on that.
George just wants the yes, George comments. He just wants those. Finally, someone's sticking it to Mikel.
And then I'm with you, Rohan. I have Martinelli left wing, and at left back Calafiori. I don't know if you guys had chosen your left backs, but
Calafiori.
Yeah, we said Calafiori.
Yeah.
Dinny. It's loaded. Hello, lovelies. Very simple one this week. Who is your favourite player in the squad not named Saka, and why?
Easy. It's Declan Rice. Hands down.
Yeah, I think it is Rice.
It's between him and Saliba. Declan Rice is just he's gonna take us.
Can I ask you, bar the pillars? Because I feel like those three are like everyone's bar the pillars.
So who are the
those
pillars?
three.
Who are the pillars in your eyes?
I'd say Saka, Saliba, Rice are like guaranteed pillars as favorites for people. Anything outside those three.
Big Gabby's up there. Timber's up there.
Mine is Ben White. I love Ben White so much.
I know you love Ben. You love Ben White.
I've loved Ben White for years.
I love Ben White.
I'm developing a little bit of a love for Christian Norgard.
Don't get me started on that guy and his misuse this season. Actually, that sickens me.
I love a guy who just does his job. Just does his job.
Does his job and never plays in the Premier League. It's so annoying.
I can't. Who else can play those balls over the top? Or does? Play them.
It's the first time for me. It's just like how willing he's able to just fire balls into the midfield. There's just been a level of that against Wigan that was like my favorite thing.
Bro's been sat on the bench all season going, good lord. Play it through the middle.
Right. Yeah. My favourite player outside the spine.
Nkapia?
Oh, do you know what? Nkapia? I actually think he's been really good in his last two starts. Like, really good. Yeah. I thought he was good against Brentford and Chelsea. I might go with Calafiori. Yeah. Yeah, Calafiori. Havertz as well is up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Kai. Okay, Kai. Yeah, mine's Kai.
What about the one you hate?
I love Kai so much.
No, it's not true. That's a nasty question.
The one you hate?
Yeah.
Oh,
What's
God.
No. We're not doing that, George.
No.
I'll answer it.
I know you will. That's why I'm moving on. Ezra's left shoelace says, in a summer where we're likely to lose Jesus, Trossard and Nelly if we win multiple trophies, fingers crossed for the quad, see you, Rohan, how willing would you be to incorporate and integrate the Highlanders as full first-team starters next season, meaning Max, Anus, Brando, Marley, etc. no longer play youth football as an alternative to expensive summer recruitment? I think, well, let me ask this a slightly different way. Who is changing any of your plans for the summer? And I would say Max is the one for me. Like, he is integrated into my thoughts for the summer. This is like, I don't do certain things because of him. Are there any other players in your mind? For me, probably there's only one more.
Me too. No one else is ready, in my opinion. It's Marley Salmon.
Yeah.
And especially as it relates to Ben White, my favorite player.
Do you think he's ready next season? Really?
Mate, he is an Ethan and Miles level talent.
Yeah.
And we just, for a 16-year-old to be a mainstay in the U21s, this for me is the best defensive talent that Haaland have produced. He's insane. And, you know, he may need a loan because a center back is one of those positions in which you look at experience, but he's asking the questions and he is that good of a talent that I am looking to the point that I don't even think we need a Saliba replacement. Like, I think he would come in down the line, not now, but he's going to be that replacement. And it's like, I plan with that in mind. And so I look at what we might need at right back and some of those things. Marley Salmon for me is on that Miles and Ethan level talent. And I don't really put anybody else there right now that I see. You look at Anus, you look at Brando Bailey J. There are people that I like. I could list you people that I like, but right now Marley is somebody that I could confidently in despite his age. And also, I know we can't talk about them, but the Quintero twins as well that we recruited. Mm-hmm. Those are on the level of I think they walk into the first team and they contribute. Talents. The other ones I have like very positive thoughts on. I'm like, I have people I like, Ibrahim, etc. I could talk to you about people, but ones that I'm guaranteeing you, like I'm willing on a podcast to say, no, they will 100% play for Arsenal's first team. Marley Salmon.
Yeah. I think I'm not yet thinking about the Quintero twins. Is it next summer they come or 26?
Next summer, 2027.
Okay. Yeah. So, but for this summer, yeah, for me, Salmon and Dominant in my thoughts for doing things like, as in, do we sign X player or do we not? And it would be based on thinking about them. Rohan?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say Max. I didn't know. My Salmon, from what I've seen, he looks really good, but the sample size is nothing that I've seen of him. So for you to say he's in your plans next season, geez, I'm excited. I didn't think he'd be that ready. So let's see.
It's because you know nothing about football, mate.
I know absolutely nothing.
Dinny Imposter. This is good. I have to say, the Discord is popping off at the minute. There's nearly 600 of you in there now. It's great. It's lovely to see you guys. It's nice to see you guys all making friends. Diddy Imposter says, we discussed in the main thread whether Miles is underperforming or are there signs of a stinkier attitude. What is your take? I've said this before. I'm always cautious and conscious of just, young black player and talking about their attitude and that sort of stuff. I think we need to be careful of that. But I will say, I think he's conscious that he's waiting for his midfield opportunity. That's what I think is going on. I think he thinks, I've shown you I'm at the level of the first team. I don't want to play left back, so I'm not gonna play out of my skin to play as a left back for you. I want to play midfield. I'm waiting for that opportunity. That's what I read it as. I could be wrong. I don't know. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I look at his performances this season, at the start of the campaign, it was kind of like, he had such a boom of a campaign last year. It was inevitably going to drop off this season. But I would say that it has dropped off just in general. I don't think he has been consistently great in his performances, specifically defensively. 1v1, there's not been that assuredness. Even in the Portsmouth game, he was really struggling with his man there. But I do feel for him because, that was the opportunity there to be in midfield, and then it's taken away from you because of an injury that happens. What I will say, though, in the second half, don't want to get too tactical on it because it is Wigan, but in the second half, Wigan did set up differently. They went more 4-5-1 without the ball. So you would have watched the first half, right, Alex? So in the first half, you would have seen Miles was really wide. Second half, he was inside. He was in midfield to give us the 4v3.
Did he look better too?
Yeah, and he looked a lot better. He was fantastic. The passes that he were playing inside into Eze in particular. The first half was great because Eze coming outside the block, facing the entire structure, and he's playing passes through, in behind. Second half, it switched. Eze's more between the lines. Miles is facing the block, and he's playing these balls over the top of Martinelli, who's making these runs inside. Eze's there as well. He's finding players in the pockets. And that is something that we would have seen Miles from the get-go had that injury not have occurred. So I do feel from there. But I think in general, I think his performances have dipped. And I think in terms of that turn and carry that he has, when you become good, everybody watches you. They analyse you. They'll try and find specific ways to combat your strengths. And I think Miles this season has been analysed. You can see the way they defend him. They're getting two players, one on the outside of him, one on the inside of him. So when he turns, you think he's away, but then there's somebody there already on his strong foot that he's taking it. So, but yeah, I think I really want to see him in midfield. I think you can see it. You can see the quality. And maybe there is an element of the frustration from him from a defensive standpoint where, he doesn't want to be in that area, constantly 1v1 out wide, and maybe there is a lack of concentration there this season because he was clamping the likes of Morgan Rogers last season. That's not luck. That's serious quality. I've struggled to believe that you can clamp players like that, but then can't clamp players of, with all due respect, Portsmouth, Wigan, So
yeah. I think it's all really well said. Let's move over to the dreaded website. Let's do this question from Kuba. Path for Waneri. He's so talented, but it appears he's down the pecking order. I think Mikel even rates a 16-year-old Downman higher. I'd love to keep Ethan, but feel like his path to more first-team football is getting blurred. However, he's also an asset we could use to further enhance other areas of the squad. Just wondering, what's your take on him and his future? Obviously, De Zerbi moving on from Marseille. I don't think have they named a replacement yet? Marseille coach.
No, but they've lost their sporting director as well, I believe.
Good.
Yeah. Mehdi Benashia.
Good stuff. Lovely.
Can I say, like, as much as we want to be like, Arsenal loans here again, this is not the club's fault.
It's just unlucky, isn't it?
No, it is, George. I don't think you understand how football works, mate. What happens is I remind you, everything good, us. Everything bad, us. That's how it works. If we're good, it's because we're good, and if we're bad, it's because we're bad. That's it. Just I'll remind you of that.
It's one of the. This is a very. Okay, part of my problem is that this conversation, just in general, as far as Ethan goes, is it goes hand in hand with a far more sensitive topic of conversation. With Martin Odegaard, I won't speak in riddles. Like, just factually speaking, start to name, outside of Martin Odegaard, 10 and right wing options that we have seen used. Ethan Nwaneri, Max, Saka, Eze.
Noni.
Havertz. We're at 6.
Jesus. Who started then?
Jesus is maybe like we had a cameo, but legitimately, we've seen Havertz multiple times in the 10. Even before.
Marino. Yeah, I was just
Marino. Multiple times in the 10. At what point?
Trossard.
So it's like, yeah. And I think legitimately the ones that we've mentioned have had 5+ games of sample in those positions. Okay, it's not been a one-off. At what point is that conversation not had? And as far as like, you know, so to me, when you talk about an Ethan Nwaneri and you talk about somebody from Hale End, yeah, you could always say, look, as far as the talent goes, that's pure profit. But factually, it's a stock rising. We see the talent. We see the impact. He has contributed in a meaningful way when he's had minutes as far as the first team. This isn't a player that has declined his performances and is a youth player that maybe is not fitting. Like him and Miles, as far as context go, I'm sorry, in the minutes that Ethan has played this season, as few as they were, he looked better than Miles this season. Last season, that wasn't the case. So to me, it's just, it's absolutely a talent. And by the way, I'm just going to come out and say it. To me, it's the profile that he's got and the skills that he's got are the upgraded versions of what I look at Martin Odegaard, another all-phase central midfielder that's got a little bit more in terms of his output, a little bit more clinical nature to his shooting in and around the box. Not just a little bit, a lot more in Ethan's regards, but also has a lot of the qualities that we're looking at Martin Odegaard to still sustain. But the difference has really been out of possession. But has that difference been that big this year? And a lot of my questions on Ethan and how far that long-term future goes is how insistent you are on a level of Martin Odegaard who is at the level of $250K a week sustaining long-term in the team. So if you're going to keep that, it's like, okay, we have to give up one of the 7 options that we've named to repurpose into a better use of resources. I just don't know if I agree with it being Ethan.
I also think that on the out of possession point, I can't remember, I'll put it this way, I can't remember a stretch of games where every single game we're doing that 22, 23, 23, 24, man for man press.
Oh,
it's one game we're doing it, or maybe a half of one game are doing it. Then they'll sit in and not build up for a little bit. Like the game is different even from a couple of seasons ago. And I think people talking about Odegaard out of possession, I'm not saying he isn't brilliant. I think even someone said it recently. Was it one of the managers?
Keith Andrews.
Yeah, Keith Andrews was praising him, and he's absolutely bang on. It's just a question of, again, sorry to plug it because I can now on the main channel. I made a video about Odegaard a couple of months ago, and the point was like not that Odegaard is a bad player; it's that the league is just going away from him,
and
it's
the
just
team has evolved.
It's just a different.
Away from that.
Yeah, it's just literally like he's just less good in less context. And by the way, Martinelli is probably the flip of that. There's certain contexts that are beginning to suit him again. So it's just how the cookie crumbles a little bit. And yeah, there was a question actually on the dreaded website about this, which was essentially, what's your feelings on Odegaard right now? Where are we? Let me find it. Saka at 10, says Shaqiri season. What does that mean for Odegaard? Do we cash in the summer?
Yeah, I think there's some legs into this conversation in general on the right hand side of midfield. When you put it out there, and the numbers, it's too many. It's just too many numbers. I'm sorry to say, but like on Odegaard, I do think, and I am seen a little bit like an Odegaard defender. But I think the Brentford game, I think he was scapegoated a little bit. I actually felt that when he came on, he was really good in that period where we got the equaliser and we were looking good. Then he does really poorly for the goal for sure. I just think the entire team dropped off in general, not just specifically Odegaard when we're talking about the technical level, but in general, I think Odegaard. I'm looking at that situation as someone else. Like I think it'd be foolish not to, because I look at Ethan Nwaneri. I think Ethan Nwaneri's class. Like I wouldn't want to let him go. I think he's, for me, still our best pocket player on the right hand side. I think he's our best pocket player in terms of receiving the ball in the half turn, driving, and making something happen. Now, obviously, we've seen Saka now in the Wigan game. We've got a taste for that, and we want to see it more. But I think Ethan's, what he's shown since he's broken into the team, consistently, we're talking about midfielders like Elliot Anderson, has been turning them easily, driving forward, attacking the space. I look at so many games this season, I feel an Ethan would have absolutely thrived. And I think the game is becoming a lot more man-orientated. So if it's a lot more man-orientated, everybody has got their man. So when we're on the ball, Ethan's going to have his man. I know Ethan is going to be able to turn his man. And then once he turns his man, the space opens up, then somebody else is going to jump, and then opens up space for somebody else. So these are things that I value a lot. And if you're asking me the question of like, who would I keep, an Ethan or a Martin Odegaard? When I look at the way the game is going, I would keep an Ethan more. So
can I make a hot take as well,
no,
so that you can have it? In my opinion, Martin Odegaard represents the easiest sale and a lack of necessity for a buy to replace. We have the most protection. If you told me you could not buy, and whoever you sold in this squad, you could not buy, who has the easiest protection to fill that hole and not buy a replacement, it would be Martin Odegaard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that. For me, it's like it's a kind of see what the offers are. Like if someone's offering 30 mil, no, don't bother. But if someone's offering 70, 80, then I'm certainly interested. I also think sometimes you can just come back to basics a little bit. And I'm going through his season so far. Yeah. Just these are the games where he's either not been involved or played very little of a part. He was not involved in the Atletico 4-0 in the Champions League. He was not involved in that Inter game. He was not involved in that Slavia Prague game where we won 3-0. And he was barely involved in that Bayern Munich game where we won 3-1. You go back into the Premier League, he wasn't involved in the Tottenham 4-1. He wasn't involved in the Leeds game only until the very end. He wasn't involved in that Sunderland game. He did play, though, that 90 minutes in the Villa game, to be fair. He wasn't in the squad for the Wigan game. He didn't play very much in the Portsmouth game. But you're looking through the games that we've won, we've either big score lines and we've played well. If you name me a game where we've gone, oh, that was a great game. Even the Leeds game, he only played 38 minutes. The 5-0, the Forest, where we've beaten 3-0, he played 18 minutes. Like the big score lines, he's not been involved in massively.
Outside of Villa.
Yeah, outside of it. No, I'm not saying there's none. I'm not saying there's none at all. But if I asked you to name, let's say the top 10 Arsenal games so far this season where we played really well from an attacking perspective, he's just not been involved. Now, if I was a Odegaard stan, and I really do genuinely think he's world class, I could say, well, X, Y, and Z in this context, but he was involved in that game and he didn't have a striker in this, and you could go into it. But sometimes you just look at the headline record and you go, okay, there's something here.
This comments, social media, it's all tribal, right? We're having a nice conversation here, right? I think it's something to look at in the summer. That's the way I stand on it. I still think this is a quality play. And when you talk about the out of possession stuff as well, the game is absolutely changing, right? So because everybody thinks that Martin Odegaard is the one who leads the press. Martin Odegaard doesn't lead the press anymore. It's more of our wingers who start high. Yeah. You watch the game against Wolves. If it's whoever's starting the right wing, it's going to be very likely that they are going to be the guy who starts high alongside the centre forward. So things change, things evolve. And that's not to say Odegaard doesn't have his use, but I think it's a conversation to be had. It'd be foolish not to have it. In the summer, given this contract situation. So.
I think also sometimes a player goes from like the most important person in the team or one of to becoming slightly less important. And then what happens is everyone goes, oh, he's done at the club. It's like, well, not necessarily. It's like, the radio was killed by TV, but chuck out your radio straight away. It's like, you might do at some point, or you change your listening habits or whatever like this. It's just change. Things move on. You don't, the moment you get a TV and chuck your radio out the window. It's like, well, I'll just put it in the kitchen now. Maybe I'll have it on when I'm making breakfast. It's a different, you're using it in a different way.
It's not the same, right? But when City sold the likes of Cancelo at a time where he was performing really well, it was because they were evolving. When Philip Coutinho left Liverpool, nobody envisaged Philip Coutinho leaving that season after the season that he actually had. But it was, again, evolving. And then you look at, what they did after that, it was the right decision. So player can be very good, and it can be a time in which you need to sell him. Like, it's not exclusive.
I will say, maybe the final point on this before we wrap up is, I'd be really curious if Mikel and Martin didn't have that kind of coach on the pitch, son-father type relationship. I'd be really curious to see how it had played out differently. I think we'd be where we are now, probably about a season earlier. I think.
I think that's a fair point, because he tactically Odegaard is class. Like,
he's amazing.
In terms of, if you look at him, it's like Rice has become that now. If you watch Rice knows exactly where you need to stand now. I saw him in that Brentford game. He was infuriated by Odegaard in some of his positioning. He was literally shouting at him. Rice has become that type of guy now in terms of how smart he is tactically and what to do. So, and Odegaard has been that for us,
And that conversation has been inflamed by some of our legends' comments about this. I don't want to run away from it. I mean, like the Tony Adams comment as far as the Rice captaincy, I do think it has inflamed the way this conversation can be had, because it becomes a little bit different. And, I'm just a fan, very simply, of, I believe that people come into your life for a very important reason. And if they are not as important as before, that doesn't make them any less valuable or any less of a person or a human for it. You will always have somebody there that has taught you a lesson and has been very important. Just because they're not as important for you anymore doesn't make them less important as an asset or a human or anything like that. So it doesn't become personal. It becomes more about the evolution, what you need in your personal journey moving forward. And that's really where I look at it. I think Odegaard has helped us grow to a certain point as a team. And we're asking, what does this new version of Arsenal need? And it may not be as important as before, and that's okay.
Incoming Odie hat-trick against Wolves.
Yeah, more than you believe. We will leave it there. Thank you all for joining us on The Squad on TDK Plus. You make sure you subscribe. You better subscribe. Please make sure you do subscribe if you enjoy the content. You can check out all the other shows, etc. on the show. We have Rohan and James, as I said, on the rewatch. Then George and I have got Scattered coming out. So if you want to sign up as a Patreon YouTube member, we're also going to try and get some data stuff back going. Maybe some youth pods and stuff. Also got Rate My Take soon, Director's Box, loads of stuff for you guys behind the scenes. But yeah, the content machine keeps rolling, baby. Thank you, Rohanicals.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Electrifying. Inspiration.